I don't know if any one of you have played Stellaris recently, but the game has certainly changed since the last patch. Now, I know the patch has been out for a while and all, but I just didn't get a chance to play it, and I always wanted to, because I wanted to test to see if my Tall Overlord strategy was still functional. And I'm happy to say it's actually stronger than it used to be, because now you purchase your leaders with energy, and I feel like you get a lot more benefits from your leaders from this one. And considering now that you have a star base limit, a smaller border empire becomes a lot more important. Well, of course, the patch is not without its flaws. The first thing that comes to my mind with playing Tall has been that your starting, how strong you start, really depends on the resources within your starting location. So it has increased the amount of luck that goes into the early game. Like, if you take a look at the resources here, I have captured this, and like these three systems from my opponent, from my early game opponent, the Rutharian Alliance, which I have currently vassalized. And the only reason I could actually do that, what is this, was because they were pacifists. So they just didn't have a decent fleet. As soon as I could overpower them, I went in and killed them all. So in time, I have vassalized them. However, this really can create a lot of difference. I feel like there was a lot less randomness going on in the previous one. However, you are given a much better selection on which areas you would like to take. Like, you can take a strategic point, build a defensive starbase over here, just like I did right here. Scholaria Bellum eventually became my my ship construction place, and I'm really liking these changes made to these shipyards. Instead of have to like 3 planets that are solely dedicated to, let's see, that are solely dedicated to creating ships, which made things a little complicated, to be honest. Now you can just have a star base that has got multiple shipyards, like 5 shipyards over here, and you can create 5 ships at once. I feel like that's wonderful. Now, because of the recent changes in the way fleets work, I feel like it is now a lot better to use smaller fleets, like lesser ships and much better technology. Like, look at this. I don't even have more than 10 corvettes. I've got 9 corvettes, 6 destroyers, 7 cruisers, 4 battleships, and 1 Titan. In theory, you could have multiple Titans, but I feel like it's a bit of an overkill. Like, I'm just so far ahead, I can just record this video while I'm playing, which is probably not a very good idea, but who cares. Let's see, they have... Oh, speaking of this, I feel like AI has been improved quite a bit. Now it takes advantage of the current mechanics, of the combat mechanics. Speaking of combat, the wars, like mostly the wars and attrition mechanics, so they will, if they know they cannot win, they're gonna fight a war of attrition, they're gonna be playing it defensively, so I quite like that. However, now it's time for the bad. The bad is the wars are sadly worse. They're a lot worse. Because now you have this attrition mechanic, which feels like every war is like a Vietnam War. And what happens over there is every time you declare a war, it's a time trial. You need to capture enough planets in time in order to be able to subjugate. However, though, if your goal is to just capture a few systems, that one has been made very easy. Like, if you're looking for, say, like this system, that system, like, for example, let me do it like this. Make changes, who cares? Like, now you have this claim system, like, I'm liking this area because they've got a lot of resources in it. I can just make a claim, and the person at the war who has the most claim will get that territory. I don't know if it is still influenced by the whether you hold it or not, but regardless. So let's see, do they have a very nice this system with 11 resources, but I'm kind of already have got 2 expanded. So I'm gonna keep it like this. Okay, let's make a claim. And this is how you like make claims where you would like to build stuff. And influence is not stuck. Like, unlike in the old days where, you know, technology would increase it by 1, instead at the start of the game... Oh, that's very nice. Let's check it out. There's an Imperium. Check this baby out. That's some nice science nexus. And that's one of the good things, like as you can see, it is right in the middle of my enemy territory. However, I can just take it, I can just claim it, and that's exactly what I did. So it gives a lot of more selections when declaring a war, and it made wars of conquest for like smaller pieces a lot easier. But if you're trying to subjugate someone, it's hell. It's hell. You need to, most of the time, conquer most of their planets until before the time runs out, before the completely arbitrary attrition mechanic runs out, because then you are forced into a status quo. And status quo means both sides that were holding, they're just gonna keep the claims that they were holding. Like, I have just claimed this costs system, and if I declare war right now, if I declare a war right now, and at the end of it, when I reach 100% war exhaustion, if I'm holding it, I'll take it, otherwise not. And the same thing goes for them. So just kind of like an exchanges. This made subjugation very, very easy and just very, very frustrating. Now, if you'll excuse me, I would like to send in my Imperial Armada for a conquest. Also, I'm gonna show you how the FTL has been changed. So right now, you're only able to use hyperlanes. All the other ones have been removed to an extent. There are some natural wormholes, like over here. And here you can see where it leads. It leads to this system. So over here. It's a nice addition. It adds a bit of a strategic depth. But I feel like this was a very good change, just limiting it to hyperlanes. And now the side drives or jump drives have been changed that you still have to use the hyperlanes. However, you have this extra function called initiate jump. And every 120 days, sorry, 200 days, for whatever reason, you are able to make this very long jump in 15 days. You can do it from anywhere in the system. And speaking of the hyper lanes, in order to use a hyper lane, you need to be at the edge of the system towards that hyper lane, which slowed the game tremendously. Like, it doesn't really matter what kind of an FTL you've got. What matters is your sublight thruster. Anything else is kind of unnecessary. Like, you can see my fleet is moving slowly because they're still recharging their FTL. And when you are initiated a jump, your sublight speed reduces by 50% and weapons by 50%, which I think adds a lot of strategic depth. Like, unlike the last time where you could just jump around, as soon as the first person discovering it just had such a huge advantage that nobody could fight with you. Fortunately, that one has expired, so it adds a bit of a strategic depth, but you really need to get used to it before you take the full benefit of it. Speaking of which, you always will want to... Let's add these trading hubs. And now, as you can see, this new interface, I love it. I just love this interface. This new station interface, it's a lot of fun. There are quite a bit of restrictions on what you can do. For example, trading hubs, you can only build where you have got colonized planets, and I believe where you've got, like, what was it, something, some kind of a trade enclave, whatever. if you have made a star base over there, then you can build those as well, and they generate a lot of energy. They generate +4 energy. Oh, in this case 735, because you can get an off-roll trading company which doubles what you're going to be getting. So it's pretty good. You still get the benefits of that specialization. So, but in general, the game feels a lot slower. Right now, the year is 2366. At this point, I normally would have won the domination victory, which I don't know if it's good or not. Oh. Okay, let's pause this. Too many colonized systems. Yeah, I have annexed these people. Who did I annex? Here they are. Oh my god. What are you? Like, will be altered to better match dominant species or empire or whatever. Assimilate them, I guess. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn these into... Well, anyway, let's go back to what we were talking about. The game feels a lot slower. It's both slower in its travel time, which is really annoying because you also get pirates. These pirates, unlike in the last time when they just spawn only once, they keep on spawning randomly in random places or seemingly random places, and they just keep on attacking your places just while you're trying to wage a war. So what I suggest you do to save yourself the nuisance, create a patrol fleet, just like with a few thousands. Like mine is a bit of an overkill, 22,000. I would say I haven't seen any pirate fleet over 4,000. So something like 4,000, 5,000, maybe even 10,000. You can just send it in and take it out. What I would just suggest you do, get one shrouded avatar if you are playing psionic, just like I do, and just let him do it. The yeah, and later on the influence just becomes way too unimportant, because when you already have all the financial and economic power you want, you don't really need lands. At that point you're just pushing for victory, for vassals and everything, and that doesn't require influence. It requires very arbitrary thing, which is you need to have borders with them, and they need to be inferior or pathetic to you, so that you demand them to be vassalized or you demand tribute, and if they decline, which they almost always will, then only then can you declare war on them to do that. That kind of doesn't make much sense to me. That just feels like unnecessary diplomacy. So Paradox has a tendency to create stalemates in their games, and this feels like one of them. So, and in my game, my mid-game crisis never started. I don't know, I was waiting for it. I was like, okay, now that I've eliminated one of the Marauders, now they have to have like a mid-game crisis, but it just never happened. Oh yeah, let's talk about the Marauders for a second. Let's take a look at Marauders. Where are you, you scum of the galaxy? Have I wiped all of you out? Nah, I'm pretty sure I kept one of them. Here they are. So these Marauders, just as you see in the patch leaders, you can hire them as leaders. They're pretty expensive. They can hire them as General, Admiral. Because I play as Psionic and I have a huge leader focus, my leaders will always be better. And they have a much better potential. However, they do get this very nice perk, which is, I believe it's like 10% fire rate, 10% dodge. It's really good. I quite liked it. And let's see. Yeah, other than wars, the game has become quite different, quite good, but the war system is really annoying. That one needs to be changed because it's insanely frustrating. The fact that even for a very weak empire, you need to occupy almost all of their systems, and it's quite annoying. They have also changed how the ground warfare works. You can check the developer diary to see how that has been changed. I don't think it's in any major way. It's very similar to what it used to be. So, other than that, it seems pretty good. The biggest problem is that attrition, and if you have any allies in the war, just pray they don't commit suicide. And that's pretty difficult because they tend to be committing suicide a lot. And guess what? If they commit suicide, your war exhaustion rises as well. So, while you're winning on one side, just because you have lost, your ally lost on the other side of the galaxy, somehow you cannot win. Somehow it's a forced status quo, and it's all in defender's side. Like for an attacker to win, that's very difficult. All defender needs to do is to just delay it long enough to force a status quo and maybe just lose the systems that the opponent had claims on, which at the later stages of the game is not even important because they already have all the systems they need. And as you might remember, the more systems you've got, the harder it is to get traditions and your research. In fact, let's take a look. My research by my systems, I've got 87 systems, so that increased by 86%. I think it reaches like a diminishing returns when it comes to that. And 14 planets increased by 65%. Well, normally this shouldn't be this long. It's because I have finished integrating this other civilization into my empire. So hopefully I'll be able to maybe use like a planet cracker on them to kill them. I don't know, I'll think of something. But yeah, that was my impressions of 2.0. I would say play it, but don't expect much. It's a very different game. Warlike approach doesn't seem to be working well anymore, and early game is a little based on luck. Other than that, it's definitely worth a try. And what you think, and if you like the video, please like and subscribe and stuff like that. And do let me know what you think about both the review and 2.0. I'm really curious what the other people think in this case, because I myself am not really sure about what to think about this game in its current state.